Is live.
All right, we should be live. Good evening, everyone. Tonight we're joined by Jason and Tara from the Phoenix area. They've been TTPG members since 2019. Jason's been a reptile keeper since he was 4 years old. And even though the two of them have been married for over 20 years, Tara didn't consider herself a reptile keeper until about 10 years ago. They've been focusing on turtles and tortoises for about 13 years. These two successfully kept reptiles while living way up in Alaska, which is quite a feat. Tonight, we're going to talk about what it was like for them to keep reptiles in such a harsh environment. We'll touch on how that compares to keeping them in Arizona. When they traded the tundra for the desert, they moved 24 turtles and tortoises down to Arizona, which, if you managed to catch that video, was just incredible. If you haven't seen the video, go take a look. It was posted in the TTPG group today, and we'll share a link to that as well. So their ranch is no longer in the Arctic, and it has evolved over the last 7 years. The tortoises are thriving in Arizona, obviously, much better place for them. They care for about 60 resident animals from 19 different species. They have 34 hatchlings from 6 different species. In addition, they've got lychee geckos, leaf-tailed geckos, true red-tailed boas, and a cat. I think in this duo, Jason is the brains and Tara is the muscle. So I guess Jason's the trophy husband, right?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
And yeah, check out that picture. Tara's the badass here.
When you're in Alaska, you do Alaska things, and that's one of the Alaska things.
So did you guys actually hunt any of the food or for the turtles or for yourself?
He was a hunter up there. I only hunted 3D targets because I don't have the heart to actually kill anything.
But when I did actually get stuff, I would do all the meat processing myself on our kitchen counter. We had giant 6-foot freezer, and she would help me bag stuff. So like as I would grind up meat to make sausage or make ground beef or like pasta or whatever, she was over there twisting the bags and closing them for me. And as I was like cutting up the various roasts and steaks, she was like bagging them up and putting them through the sealer and writing on like the date and everything. So she helped with all the dead animals, and they tasted amazing.
Just didn't make them dead.
Yeah.
She had a hand in it. Yeah. Good. Well, thanks for joining us this evening. Appreciate you both. Yeah.
Happy to be here.
So, Wendy, I'll let you kick things off.
Yeah, sure. So let's talk a little bit about what it's like to keep just reptiles in general in Alaska. I would imagine heating is like everything has got to be more difficult there. You don't have the option of anything really being outside. I know you were saying even in the summer, like you didn't have permanent enclosures because the time that they could be out was so short, and there's other dangers. Like most people don't have to worry about moose stepping on their tortoises, whereas
Right.
you guys did.
Yeah. So keeping them is everything had to be as artificial as can be because nothing was going outside. So trying to do your best to simulate what you think they need and what you learn. Oh, this is a better way of doing it. This is a better way of doing it, all while inside. And that wasn't too hard. But in Alaska, getting stuff shipped up there is really, really difficult from a price point of view, and just some things just won't ship to Alaska. There's no getting a waterland tub in Alaska. We did have feed stores up there, so we may do with Rubbermaid enclosures. And from a heating and cooling standpoint, the high temperatures in July are upper 60s. So and sometimes, like I think there's maybe 3 or 4 days in almost the decade that we were up there that we hit the 80s. Houses up there, for the most part, don't even have air conditioning systems. They have a heating system, and you can turn the fan on to try to bring some of the cool air, well, not really cool, but cooler air downstairs up to the second floor. But it really doesn't help. And there were some very, very uncomfortable nights. And whereas down here, a night in the 80s feels great. That is one big difference. Up there, the electricity bill was decently high. The rates are by today's comparison pretty good. But if you think about what your electric bill was about a decade ago, so 2015, 2016, and then you look at the prices that I was paying in electricity, you're like, wow, that's a pretty high electric bill. But that's only part of the story. Because it's so cold outside, you have to keep your ambient air temperature in your house warmer. So most people that we knew would keep their houses around 65 in the winter time. But if you have tortoises, especially in open air enclosures, well, 65 isn't going to cut it. So we got to keep our house in the mid to low 70s, and then their heat lamps and their heat panels would augment and keep them where they needed to be temperature wise. And even when you have glass enclosures, the glass is only this thick. So it's not really retaining that much heat, and the outside air temperature is playing a pretty big role in those enclosures. So another large part throughout the year was our gas bill. And there were some months where our gas bill in December and January were $400 and $500. When you put the electricity bill, which is about $350, with a $400 gas bill, you're spending in energy $700 a month. On the chart that Michael put up a second ago, I did averages for each year, but that's kind of thrown off because in June and July, you'll see the gas bill was like $65, $55. The electricity bill stays pretty regular throughout the year, but the price averages are really thrown off by those 3 months because they're so much less than the rest of the year. Another problem with remote Alaska is the remoteness.
Getting food.
Yeah, getting food, paying for stuff up there. She would go to Walmart and there wouldn't be lettuce.
I learned the best times to get to the various places I was going, whether that was Walmart or just any other grocery store up there. We didn't have Fry's. What was it?
It was Freddy's.
Freddy's.
Yeah.
Fred Meyer's, yes.
Yeah.
Fred Meyer's, sometimes I could find some like quality vegetation, but it was a lot of spray mix. And back then, we were also using a lot of Missouri, like pellet style diet, because that's just what we had available. And there were, in summer, the grass and stuff would get nice and lush. So every now and then I'd literally go take scissors and like use grass things and like clover clippings and all. But that was incredibly rare. And back then we weren't using things like Capital Farm additives or anything like that because I was unaware of them at that time.
Yeah.
So
I was looking at this picture and I'm like, you really had warm weather to grow clover? So
yeah, that's July. That's the middle of July. So it's probably 60 something, 70 degrees at when this picture was taken. And we had these little garden blocks that we found at the feed store. We found a lot. It was pretty cool as I became more transitioned away from snakes, more into turtles and tortoises. Finding out that a lot of the stuff that's at the feed store that's good for chickens, cattle, rabbits translates really well into use for turtles and tortoises. So what I was lacking in reptile specialty stuff, I could kind of engineer and MacGyver up a little bit and use for the turtles and tortoises.
Can you tell me a little bit about, I think it may have been your Galapagos container before you were moving, it had the whole drainage layer and then you had sod over top. Like I've never seen anything like that. It was really cool.
So what I wanted to do is
wasn't it the sled?
All of them, all the cages like that. An irrigation system that I came up with was as I got deeper into turtles and tortoises, I started learning that the stuff that I knew from the 90s and early O's when I was keeping them was very wrong. And what a lot of people still, when they talk to, well, don't they all live in the desert? Don't they just get their water from their food? Like these are things that I knew and repeated to people back in the 90s and early O's because we all knew this stuff. And as I was in forums and learning from people that were more successful keepers, I realized, these guys need moisture. but you don't want it to be sopping soggy wet. So I was like, well, how do I get it moist for them when they want it, but give them dry without having a giant hill or something? I was like, well, what if I just made it wet from the bottom? And that way the heat lamps and the heat panels could dry the top out. And if they wanted to, they could make their own little micro habitats like they do in the wild. So what I came up with was PVC pipes, and sat there. It would usually take about an hour more to make them, and drill holes in the bottom of PVC pipes, and then have two tubes coming up, because I learned one tube, you need air. You need somewhere for the air to go when you're putting water in there. So I had to, after I made one and water wasn't going down, I had to dig it all back up. So I make a layer with the PVC, basically a network of pipes and holes in it, and then put. And first I was getting rocks, but then I found the clay pellets that are a lot lighter. That way when I'm moving stuff, it's a little bit easier to move stuff. Put those on, and then just your basic black layer of weed barrier. That way when I put the substrate on top, it didn't get down and cake up around the holes or cake up around the rock layer. And throw in some of the grass seed that was available up there in the stores. They had their own special Alaska type of grass that would grow pretty well up there. And what that allowed me to do is every couple of, I don't know, maybe once or twice a week, I would take a funnel, pour water into PVC, and it would make that bottom layer wet. It would feed the grass that grew. I'd also was able to buy on eBay prickly pear cactuses. So I had a pretty good amount of prickly pear cactuses. And then I would find sod up there, because there was a handful of places just north of us in Wasilla, and wide open, and they had a lot of organic sod. So you'd go up there and buy a truckload of it and bring it back. And so that would feed it all from the bottom. But also, like I mentioned, the tortoises, if they wanted to be dry, they could be dry. But if they wanted that nice moisture layer and moisture near their heat lamp to kind of give like a warm moist, they could have that also. And the large Galapagos cage that you're talking about was my way of making a gigantic waterland. In Alaska, outdoor activities are fun, hunting, fishing, and Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's have these large black sleds. They kind of look like a cement mixing pan, a little bit larger, and those used to go ice fishing, and they come in all sizes. Some of the sizes are big enough for a tent. So if you're out ice fishing for a day or two, you drag one of these out and you put your tent on top of it, and your tent fastens to it. You can even put a bucket in there to sit on. They have pop outs so you can put holes in the bottom. So I think they were 5 or 6 feet long. And so what I did is I bought 2 of them. I cut the front ramp off that like helps you get through the snow and ice. And then I took bolts, bolted it together, and siliconed it to make it watertight. And so now I have in my living room a 10-foot makeshift waterland tub for the giant tortoises, because when I got them, they were about 9 inches, and they were in a medium, the largest medium waterland tub, and that was good for them for a little bit. And they were outgrowing that, and we still, at this point, I think that was like January of 2018, and we weren't leaving until August of 2018. So I needed something in that little bit of time. In fact, and that enclosure is still standing up in my garage right now. So if I need it for something, it's in there. And then same, they're not high enough, so I had to make little wood walls around it, and just to keep them from being able to climb out. And we had a dog at the time that liked everything, and he was definitely tall enough to jump over it, but he wasn't motivated enough to jump over it. So that kind of kept him where he was just like nosing down to see everybody, versus trying to get in there and hang out with them the way her cat would like to. Sometimes when heat lamps and
my cat still likes to get in there and get under the heat lamps.
I have one that does that too.
Out in Alaska, did you have opportunity to run into other turtle people? Did you meet any?
And by chance, really. In 2017, I've been keeping turtles up there for quite a while. Now, to back up a little bit, Wendy had mentioned I've been keeping reptiles since I was 4, and I was primarily a snake guy. Most of my life, I kept snakes. I always had a turtle or tortoise. I'd had like a matamata and a pretty nice pair of redfoot tortoises, a sulcata here and there. But
that wasn't the focus.
Yeah, snakes were my primary thing. And when we got to Alaska, we brought some of them with us, and a lot of them weren't really thriving too well. That is a picture from Florida, circa 2005, 2006. And that is a canebrake rattlesnake, also known as a timber rattlesnake.
I took that picture.
Yep, she took that picture. When we met, I had a venomous license in Florida, so I was keeping a room full of venomous snakes. I had rattlesnakes, cobras, crates. I had all kinds of stuff that I would like. Like if I knew me back then, like, why? What are you doing? And the answer I usually gave people was, they're not a pet. They're like a really nice tropical fish tank. You make a cage for them. They're very colorful. They look really nice, but you don't pet them. You don't touch them. You interact with them as little as possible. Like if you have to clean the cage for some reason, you got to move them from point A to B. And then when they're giving them water, you lock them in their boxes, and you call it good. That is a boa constrictor that I had. I got him October 8th, 1991. It was an early birthday present. And he lived until June of 2018, right before he moved down here.
Wow.
So he was an old guy, very old guy.
And every deployment that he would go on, I would have to feed Zeus. And unfortunately, I have like an actual physical anxiety with snakes that I am just now starting to kind of conquer. And it's only because of my wild interaction or my interactions with wild king snakes out here. But like, it was so hard for me to feed Zeus for every time I had to, even if it was just once a month. It was just so physically difficult. And I know that some people like are like, that's silly or don't understand that. But for me, it was a big deal. But I wanted to, stay, holding Zeus. Once Jason would get him out and get him kind of on me, I would sort of quote unquote relax, but not really.
In this picture, she's probably sweating like crazy.
Yes, like that's my anxiety response.
The picture doesn't capture it, but yeah, she's sweating bullets right there.
So I totally feel you. I had the same kind of reaction to spiders a very long time ago, and my husband in college was like, I'm going to get into tarantulas, and I was like, oh, cool. The first time he had me hold one, my whole hand and arm broke out in hives because I was so terrified.
I understand though.
But after a couple of years, you're like, oh, well, they're not trying to jump on your face, or but that deep kind of fear, like
instinctual.
That was really nice of you to take care of the snakes while you felt that way.
Definitely appreciate it. And because of that anxiety, slowly started moving from snakes to turtles, because tortoises and turtles, she could, throw turtle food in the water for them, get them some minnows from time to time. She could eat stuff to the turtles. And so in Alaska, that's kind of where the shift happened, because I was with a combat unit. We were deploying a lot more than before. Before, I was with the training command for like 13 years. So I would leave a lot for like a month at a time, 2 weeks at a time, but I could take care of the snakes and they'd be fine until I got back. Normally, occasionally I'd be gone for 6 weeks, 2 months, where she had to do a little bit, but Alaska got a lot more. So it was a natural evolution to go from the snakes into the tortoises. And also I was keeping Amazon basin emeralds and patternless emeralds. I had a lot of really, really good snakes, and the humidity up there is less than here. I was getting nosebleeds when we first moved there because it was so dry. So even with a fogger, like I just could not keep these things healthy. So that's why I was like, well, tortoises live in the desert. They're good with you. They're good with dry conditions. And then I start, I was like, well, I'll get more of those. And reading more, I was like, oh, well, that brings us to making irrigation to give them moisture that I beforehand really didn't know that they needed. But then I'm learning all this stuff. And so I'd always be on fauna, looking, hey, like what's available. I got a pair of eastern box turtles from a breeder in California sent up. FedEx place and the Delta place, we knew where those were. Just didn't need the GPS or anything. Knew right where to go because FedEx wasn't delivering to my house. And one time on fauna, I saw somebody selling Burmese star tortoises from Palmer. I'm like, Palmer? Somebody in Alaska that has tortoises besides me? Well, heck yeah. I mean, I'm definitely going to save on shipping. And it turns out this fella actually lived down here and knew some of the people that I would come to meet once I moved down here. And when we met, he was talking about the tortoises he had. He had a radiated tortoise. He had Galapagos tortoises because he had lived here previously.
And our minds were just
like
Galapagos
tortoises. And as we got to know each other, I initially bought our now adult Burmese star tortoises from him, and he he decided I think he moved to Alaska initially temporarily to make some money, but he decided he was going to stay up there long term. And so he offered to sell us both his radiated tortoise and his Galapagos tortoises because the military was moving me back to stateside about a little bit over a year after he and I had met. And so he knew that Alaska was no place for these animals to thrive. And since my career field, very few places I could go because it was such a narrow career field. I worked on 5th generation aircraft. And at the time, there weren't as many out there, and there definitely weren't as many bases. So my options were here, Tyndall in Florida, outside of Panama City, which is where I was for 8 years of my career to begin with, Eglin, Langley, and Hill Air Force Base in Utah. So there was, no matter what, I was coming back, and I was probably going to be somewhere that was good for tortoises. And it just so ended up that I came back here to Arizona. And so he was the only other tortoise person that I met up there. And since he decided he was going to stay up there for good, I was coming back here. That's how I ended up having Galapagos tortoises in Alaska and a radiated tortoise in Alaska. Before that, I'd actually applied for a CBW. And when I was talking with the person prior to the approval, it seemed like I was going to get approved for a CBW for radiated tortoises because of the experience that I'd had with other species. And it was kind of the rejection that I got after like this person showed, yeah, it's okay, you know, should be approved in a couple of weeks, blah, 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 was, okay, you did that stuff, but what have you done lately? And I'm like, well, I've been in Alaska and I kept in Florida. It was easy to keep stuff, but I'm trying to get this so I can do stuff in Alaska. And then when I moved back to the lower 48, keep going. Again, luckily I moved to Arizona where there are plenty of breeders of everything. So that not getting that CBW didn't really matter when I was up there. And I happened to meet somebody else living in Alaska, resident to resident, that had these animals that like were barely more than fantasy bucket list animals at that time. So,
what are the chances of that? That's crazy.
Yeah. But he was selling his stuff because he was getting away from tortoises and moving more into albino sliders is what he was focusing on up there, because you could keep those inside and they were doing good enough to cold. Little known fact is that red-eared sliders are, I don't know if you would consider them invasive, but they live in the wild in Alaska. In the middle of Anchorage, there Diamond Mall, there's a place called Taku Lake, Taku, and we saw red-eared sliders in that lake. And we'd come back and they'd be there the next year. So they're able to actually live up there. And people in Wasilla, which is north, had mentioned seeing them also in some of the ponds up there. They call Minnesota the land of lakes, but Alaska has Minnesota beat hands down. I mean, all along the highway, there's amazing lakes everywhere. In the middle of the city of Anchorage, there's lakes. There's the largest floating aircraft airport in the middle of town. It's not on the coast. It's in a lake in the middle of town. So by saying they're not invasive, I don't know if they're reproducing. Didn't spend enough time through the weeds to see if there's babies being born or not.
Water's a little bit cold for that.
Yeah, and I mean, temperature probably doesn't get warm enough. Although the sun heats up the ground, so maybe the ground might get to a minimal temperature. So while I don't think they're reproducing, they are living up there pretty well year to year. And in fact, there's a snapping turtle at the zoo that was caught up there in Campbell River, which is a really cool salmon fishing area that is kind of connected to or just north of Taku Lake. And so it was a big news thing. Like they were following, they didn't catch it right away. There was news reports of it, and they went out there. It took them a couple of weeks, if I remember correctly, to catch this really large snapping turtle. So where it was going and how it was hiding in these lakes or in these rivers, it's pretty amazing. But there are invasive turtles that do live. Again, invasive depends on your definition. There are non-native turtles living very well up there. I just don't know if they're reproducing or not. I would guess they aren't, but I didn't take time because we were just out on hikes. I wasn't out like herping because I'm in Alaska. Who goes herping in Alaska? Looking through the grasses and all the pond plants for babies. There are also down further south of us, there is an area that has a population of garter snakes that people would take pictures of and post. Nice. Earthworms are all over Alaska now. Those are an invasive species. Those are not native. Before people got there were no worms in Alaska in that part. But they're there now. There is a native, I think it's a wood frog that people would send me pictures of that live in Wasilla and Palm that are out there. I never got a chance to actually go catch one and take some pictures of it, but those are the only, I believe, native reptile or amphibian in Alaska outside of stuff that's in the ocean.
I think that's correct.
Yeah, leatherbacks go way north, so they can be seen off the coast from time to time. But yeah, just those. And so that's the only. Coming back to your original question, there was one other turtle and tortoise person that I met while living in Alaska. Now, also, we got some turtles and tortoises because pet stores sold them.
Or because we saw them on Craigslist.
Yes. And a pair of tortoises we had were a pair of Russian tortoises. And I saw this person selling it on Craigslist. And I'm like, hey, you're asking an awful lot of money for these tortoises. I don't know why. He's like, well, they were our families. Our kids loved them, but the kids moved out or the grandkids moved away and we don't know what to do. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not really interested in them. Well, he hit me up maybe a month later saying, hey, do you want these? I'm like, well, I mean, I was like, well, either you take them or I'm going to let them go. I'm like, you can't let them go to Alaska. Like, well, they're Russian tortoises and we're in Alaska. It's the same, isn't it? And as much as I didn't want these, I'm like, I can't let somebody let these animals go. So we ended up getting a pair of Russian tortoises that they had purchased. We had a tortoise named Harambe that we got. He was at least 10 years old, and he had lived his entire life in a 45-gallon glass aquarium.
Harambe was a reptile tortoise.
We called him, he was roughly. We called him Harambe because from living on a glass bottom with nothing to move against, his muscles were just severely underdeveloped in his arm, and his tendons curled everything. So when he would move, he looked kind of like like a gorilla moving around.
Aww.
And Harambe was shot maybe a year or two before that. It's fresh in our minds. Looks like a gorilla, so he's Harambe.
Yeah.
And then
yeah, I'm curious about those Russians. The gentleman from whom we got, did he by any chance keep them outdoors?
No. I got the enclosure kept in. He made a nice enough, really long wooden enclosure. And they were inside. I'm not sure if they ever went outside with the grandkids at the time. We didn't become friends or talk much. It was, pretty much an exchange. Just gave him the money he wanted for the things, and brought him back. And that's when we learned that she does not like Testudo genus.
Yes.
Because the males are very, very amorous. And
so
I don't like any sort of overly amorous males.
They were from elongated tortoises. And quite a few Asian species of aquatics. And
this Russian tortoise, she was missing most of the scales on the front of her arms because she'd go in their shell and the male's biting at her, nipping at her. So obviously we split them up, and it was just such an odd thing. But the person, again, making weird and kind of dumb assumptions. Russia is just like Alaska, so why can't I let them go in the wild if they're Russian tortoises? Well, they're not even from Russia; they're from Kyrgyzstan, that side over there, and bordering Afghanistan. They're from a completely different environment. They're not from Siberia. They're not from the Kamchatka Peninsula.
Well, some people think you can also see Russia from Alaska too. So
well, you can see I did visit a radar site when I was up there that you could see Russia. There's two islands that you can see. How was the name of the radar site? It was just north of the Arctic Circle. I can't remember the name of the radar site, but I visited, and like if it was clear that day, you can see that island, which is technically Russia. But that's way out there and on a very fast plane that took us 6 hours to get out there. That's something else that's really unique about Alaska is how big it is. It is gigantic. I put a picture in there called "Sorry Texas" because everybody's like, "Oh, biggest state out there." I'll tell you what, Texas.
Everything's bigger in Texas.
Yeah, Alaska, 2.6 times the size of Texas. Fairbanks, which most people consider northern Alaska, is actually in the very center of the state. That from Anchorage is an 8-hour drive.
Wow.
Going at a pretty good speed. And then from Anchorage up to what used to be called Barrow, it now has a native name that I can't pronounce. But what used to be Barrow, Alaska, that is another 9-hour drive from Fairbanks to get to the northern coast. And then Anchorage, they call that Southwest Alaska or Southeast Alaska. There's still a crap ton more that goes down along Canada where all the various little islands and whatnot are. So Juneau is nowhere near the main populated part of Alaska. But yeah, Alaska is gigantic. But as big as it is not suited for wild Russian tortoises.
Yeah.
How long a drive was it for you guys to go from Alaska to Arizona? And did you have any issues with customs because you had to go through Canada?
No,
Ha-ha!
we did not.
Ha-ha!
You didn't.
On the way
Okay.
up, we had a handful of reptiles, and we took the ferry, which never goes into Canada. So, but we did have to get vet certificates for all of our animals that we were taking with us. So that was kind of a pain in the butt because any animals
And
coming
it was
into the state,
expensive too.
yeah, well, it's a vet.
Yeah.
So any animals coming in the state needed a health certificate, and so I didn't upload any pictures, but I have pictures of us taking we had a caiman, a smooth front caiman at the time. His name was Chompy, that I had for probably 6 years at that point,
That's crazy.
and he was. You wouldn't hold him like a puppy, but he wouldn't freak out when we would handle him. So he was pretty cool. And so even though we were in Texas, the vet was like, I think he's healthy. I'm like, yeah, he's healthy. Because there's not a whole lot of, everybody knows exotic vets are few and far between. So
Yep.
a lot of times you just got to kind of explain stuff to the vet as they're doing stuff with you. So yeah, we got these health certificates, and it took us from Texas to Bellingham, Washington, which is where the ferry leaves from. That was a 5-day drive. And
No, 5 days.
yeah, 5-day drive. And then we get to the we pull up to where that we're gonna load on the ferry. We got there really early, and they put a little tag if you have animals. That way they know when there's the times to go take care of your animals, you're allowed to come down. There shouldn't be people at this vehicle. You know what they didn't do? Ask us for health certificates. They didn't look at anything.
Had a giant.
So you paid all that money. Yeah.
They spent all this money. They didn't even look at the silly things. And so yeah, then you get on it, and it's a 5-day trip up there from Washington to Whittier, Alaska, which is on the other side of the mountains and south of Anchorage. To get there, luckily you don't have to go over the mountains. There is a 7-mile tunnel through there. It's a long drive, and it's also a train tunnel. So there's only one-way traffic. So there's follow me vehicles, and the trains come through. And when the train is done, people leaving Whittier go through, and then people coming from Anchorage to Whittier come through. It's a port town. That's where like most stuff that comes in via ship comes into Whittier and just gets on the Alaska Railroad right there, and then comes up through that single train tunnel. That's the only way in and out of Whittier that isn't with a helicopter or a boat. But yeah, it's a pretty long drive there and back.
And the same journey, the same 5 days on a boat.
Yeah,
to get back.
At the beginning of your journey.
Yep.
The cool thing about coming back was that the health certificates weren't necessary. We had a vet, and she actually had a decent amount of experience with reptiles. She was a veterinarian in Washington State before moving up to Anchorage, and she had one of her customers was a reptile importer. So she was constantly seeing stuff, and so we talk about some of the nasty stuff she saw, and just compare stories about stuff that we'd seen over the years. Because when I bought the eastern box turtles that were sent up there, within a day or two, the male developed a bulge on the side of his ear. So I'm like, man, do you think the vet even knows what to do? I have a lot of books, so I have a lot of veterinary textbooks for reptiles, and I learned over the years to bring these with me to give to the veterinarian and say, hey,
this is what I think it is.
256. This is it. And she's like, oh yeah, I have that book too. I'm like, oh, cool. You have Matter's book. Nice. That's nice. And so actually, oddly enough, in Alaska, I had a very good reptile vet. And she had even agreed that before we found out that we didn't need health certificates, she was going to come to our house and make a house call. And that way she could check everybody. So we didn't have to try to, carry
everybody in there. Yes.
Yeah, everybody. I mean, the main trip down from Alaska was going to be kind of a pretty big pain in the butt. But yeah, so she was all ready to come out and take care of them at the house, or look at them at the house before we drove back down here, or back to the lower 48 to Arizona.
Can you tell us a little bit about the travel containers that you made for everybody? I thought those were super ingenious. It's not like you can go to the store and buy a Galapagos heated travel container. And I know you guys had at some points in your journey access to electricity, but not the whole way. And you figured out everything with heat packs. Like, I thought the way that you handled that was really clever. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, definitely. Being in Alaska, you learn stuff because when things go wrong, even if you live in Eagle River or Anchorage River City, emergencies are still a bigger deal up there because of the extremes. And I think we've been up there for a year. It's definitely second year, because my first summer I missed. I was in the desert. I was in a much hotter location than the Alaska summer for that. So the first summer that I was there for, our second year there, power went out. It turns out that at a transfer station, a wolverine had gotten in there and was chewing on wires and fried himself, started a fire at the transfer station. So for the better, I think it was a couple of days, power was out. And again, upper 60s. So I'm freaking out trying to, because we might have had, we might have the star tortoises at this point, and maybe Sauron, one of our redfoot tortoises. I don't remember the time frame, but I was like, man, this sucks, and it's cold and stuff. And so what I learned really quickly is even something as inconvenient as a power outage means death for your animals there. So you have to be not so much reactive and really plan stuff out. Something I see on YouTube down there in Florida, you guys, it's just like here, it doesn't get that cold, but sometimes it gets cold. And I know in December, I'm going to see at least 5 videos. Oh no, it's cold. What do I do? Or it got too cold. What do I do? It's like, I don't know. Maybe in the summertime when you're building something, build an insulated enclosure build an insulated house for it. Because while it keeps it warm in the winter, it also keeps it cooler in the summer because you put insulation in it. So things like that, and seeing these emergencies. Also, part of one of my jobs that I had was planning for deployments, and if adverse weather comes in, how are we going to handle with our aircraft? What are we going to do? So I already had a kind of that mindset of I have to figure it out, and I'm going to, again, MacGyver stuff. Have to get pretty creative with it. So basically, the enclosures were the typical black tubs that you can get from Lowe's or Home Depot, but I knew I needed to keep them warm because the ferry, the vehicles are in the bottom of the ferry, which is below the water line, so it's going to be cold, and I needed to keep them warm. So I did a couple things. I bought heat tape, like the heat tape that you would put on the back of a breeding rack, or I use it for my makeshift incubator. And so I bought that and cut it to the right sizes. And I got, if I didn't already have one, I used an extra thermostat, and I bought an inverter for my truck so that I could plug that into the lighter. I mean, now all trucks have plugs on their own.
Plugs,
but I had a 12 Tundra. So it had a lot of space, but it didn't have that many perks. So I had buy a converter, or buy an inverter so I could plug stuff into it. And I would use that. I would use the heat tape as the primary heat source. I knew on the ferry that we were unlikely to have electricity. So what I did is I did the math on how long the little hand warmer heat packs last. I experimented over a couple of weeks by putting them inside those to see what temperature I could get, how many I needed, how long that would last. And so I ended up buying a lot of them. And the good thing is, Alaska, everybody goes hunting, so those things are plentiful up there. Like every store sells them. Like they're at gas stations. Cabela's had them. Bass Pro, Walmart has like a whole area of them because they're
different kinds.
Yeah, they're just needed. Yeah. So I was like, okay, if I don't have power, then I'm going to need to keep these guys warm somehow. And this people ship stuff with the heat packs. I also know that you don't want them to touch animals because I think I had like the first time I bought leucistic Texas rat snakes. Neither one of them made it because the heat pack came in contact with the little plastic things, and they came to me nice and cooked. So early on in my reptile keeping, I learned the dangers of heat packs. So what I did is I made put little 1x1 pieces of wood down there, and then put plywood on either side, and cut holes in the plywood with a little drill hole saw, so that I could put the heat packs down in there. They'd radiate the heat out openly, and air could flow back and forth between the different areas that I made for the different size tortoises, and nobody would ever be able to come into contact with those heat packs. And I had probably 3 rubber, big Rubbermaid containers that were just stacked with heat packs because I calculated it out, and I needed a lot of them for 5 days, and for 5 days without power. And as it turns out, I used very few of them because somebody parked near us brought with them a chest freezer, because they did, unlike us, they didn't want to get rid of all their game meat before they left. I didn't even think of that. And also, that's a 6-foot freezer that I got to find space for, and I had to find space for all these enclosures. So that wasn't even on my mind. But he had talked to some of the people that worked down there and was able to get an extension cord over. Well, I had a bunch of extension cords anyway in my truck. I was like, "Hey, you mind if I tap off that electricity?" And he was like, "Yeah, sure, go for it." So I think it was like
pure luck.
Yeah, second or third day when I saw the person down there, because they had a dog also. I was like, "Hey, you mind if I use some of your electricity there?" And so, yeah, it took about 2 days of just heat packs, and it worked out pretty fine. Also, nice and dark. Tortoises, when it's dark, they primarily just hang out and sleep.
Yep.
There's not a whole lot of movement, and they made the entire trip all the way down, and not a single casualty the whole way down. On
That's
the way
amazing.
up there, Chompy, the caiman, I knew they stressed out pretty easily. I'd learned that from watching the Crocodile Hunter. That's why he caught them the way he caught them, using top jaw ropes and stuff, versus trying to tranquilize them or trying to restrain them too heavily, because they stress out and they can die from the stress. So I was trying to do everything I could to keep him from being stressed out, which worked. But when we got there, getting a house took us a lot longer than we'd anticipated. So the cramped
quarters.
Yeah, quarters. He was in a Rubbermaid also that I had, and I had a little heat mat underneath of it, but he just wouldn't eat. He ended up dying before we even moved into our house. And again, I'd had him from 6 years. He was like, we got him at a reptile show, I think, down in San Antonio, because we lived in Texas. And he
lives in our kitchen.
Yeah. And she fed him the entire time I was in Korea for a year. I was in Korea for an entire year before we went to Alaska. So she was taking care of everything for that year.
Strange that I didn't have any sort of anxiety response to the caiman. But
About the kitchen caiman.
Yeah, the
kitchen caiman. That needs to be a sticker.
Yeah.
Did you breed anything while you were in Alaska?
We had stuff that tried to breed.
Nothing successful.
Yeah, nothing successful. Okay. And that's another reason why I got out of the Amazon basins and the emerald tree boas. I had females twice while we were up there swell up, which is saying, "Hey, I'm ready for a male." Their follicles swell up, and that's when you have to add the male over, and they should be breeding. But again, the conditions just were no good. So they tried, but they weren't thriving up there. We had poison dart frogs for a few years. That's another Alaska special right there. We had poison dart frogs, and they did pretty well. They were a lot noisier than I read about in books or people had said. You could hear them all over the house, like no matter where you are. Like they were in the sunken den area, and they were just so loud. And like we had no idea, because Discovery Channel, they poison dart frogs are used. They rub them, kill monkeys, and eat the monkeys.
There's always like a music layover too.
Yeah, and there's probably not people not working with them naturally to know, like, they're really loud. They chirp a lot. Those guys did pretty well until Alaska hit us, and for quite a while, I can't remember how long, we couldn't get fruit flies, their primary food source. It was too cold, so nothing was being shipped up. Petco and PetSmart, nobody had them. I got most of my stuff from Josh's Frogs, but when the temperatures are too low, they can't ship stuff. So it was basically the cold kept everything out. And unlike a tortoise that can go a while without eating if really necessary, and snakes that can go months without eating, poison dart frogs, you feed them like every other day. They're very high metabolism, quick eaters. So
and they need tiny, like you can't substitute with like full-size crickets.
Yeah. And I tried breeding fruit flies, but again, it's so dry up there. Even when you a trick that somebody told me was use the little sweater drawers, the plastic sweater drawers, and put a cup of water in there to kind of raise humidity. Even trying that, I could never get the fruit flies to really take off for me. So I'd always bought them, or always order them usually. And once I couldn't order them anymore, and the pet stores didn't have them, it was within a month we had 0 poison dart frogs. And we had bumblebee poison dart frog. We had the blue azurius. We had a couple different types of tinctorius poison dart frogs. We had somebody had given me their red bellied toads that
they also make a ton of noise.
Yeah, a little bit. Yep. And so something that got to consider in Alaska is you may not be able to feed your animals, and that's why it was like,
I mean,
super
we
upsetting.
sort of ran into that with the whole like
Lettuce.
finding lettuces and
Yeah,
things.
and finding
Yeah.
greens.
When you have redfoots, at least you can pivot to fruit if you have to. Or we also
Yeah.
have the Missouri pellet diet.
And the Zumet pellet diet. We
Yeah,
also
right.
like we're using a lot of artificial foods, but that's because they don't need live foods. There are alternatives when you have something that its primary food is tiny flower beetles or fruit flies, or there are a handful of other things that are sold now that are little tiny bugs they can eat. And there's no ants up there. Something that is really great about Alaska, with the exception of about 2 weeks when they're really bad, mosquitoes are really bad. The rest of the year, there's pretty much no bugs.
Yeah, 0 bugs. That was the hardest thing for me to transition to here. Was every single time I go outside, I'm assaulted by flies, just everything.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
up there, there's nothing.
Yep.
Was it
Yeah, but
quiet when you went outside there? Since
No.
there were like no crickets and stuff?
No, there's no crickets. There's a lot of birds, a fair amount of birds up there. So you hear that. A lot of water. So there's waterfalls and water running a lot of times because snow and whatnot for a good part of the year. But yeah, I wouldn't say it was the most quiet. Yeah, that's our front yard. And that was taken probably the same day as the picture with the tortoises outside. And that's why you can't have outside enclosures for tortoises, because the bears jump your fence. Moose can jump a 6-foot fence with no problem. In fact, a lot of times to have their babies, a pregnant moose will jump a 6-foot privacy fence because it's a little bit, it's a privacy fence. It gives them it gives them some feeling of safety. Now a bear can obviously get up and over that fence and, hey, free baby. But for the most part, like moose like doing that. And so you'd walk out back and walking right back inside because there's a moose and a brand new baby shooting up the ever-loving crap out of you. Like you call into work like, hey, I can't come into work. We get hay from time to time.
It's a really good question about the hay there.
Yeah. Hay, some tortoises will eat it as a staple. Some tortoises don't. I did make a video kind of showing how to get picky tortoises to eat hay by tricking them, putting the good tasting stuff on top of it. That way they're still getting a lot of fiber and a lot of what they need from, or what is good for them from hay. But a lot of tortoises, like, they just don't like it as a staple. So getting them to eat it, it was used, and the pet stores had like the cool little mini bales that we could get. And what was the feed store called up there? It's down in South Anchorage. We used to go to it. But they had hay also. They had like the smaller, I don't know, like 25-pound bales. So we could get that stuff. But for the most part, it was primarily store greens or artificial diets like Zumed, Missouri, and stuff.
Yeah, I don't find most of my tortoises don't eat hay as well. But I don't have grassland species. Like you had the radiated, at least that's a grassland species, and you had the galops that are grassland species. But like your testudos and all that, they don't really eat dried grass. They eat broadleaf, so they don't like to eat the hay. And getting them to eat it is just like, why do I keep trying? It's just, I understand the benefits of having that extra fiber, but it's not a natural item for them. So going to the broader leaf stuff is better for me. Like Capitella Farms with the dried clover and stuff like that's a better option than me even trying to do Timothy hay. So I understand your pain there. Did you try rabbit food at all?
Never tried rabbit food. When I was,
it's not perfect, but I think in a pinch you can get away with it.
Yeah. When I was younger, of course, people discovered that rabbit food more or less can be used as a perfect bedding for reptiles, which that's sarcasm because it is the driest, most moisture sucking stuff there is. So if you're using that for your reptiles, yeah, it's easy for a person to clean, but it is probably the worst, that little pelleted
the
stuff.
Dust.
Yes, like the worst stuff for any reptile. But again, it was, this is a great idea. And you learn over years, you learn over time, and if you're willing to accept that you're wrong about stuff from time to time, you learn how to do things better. Like I said, back in the 90s and O's, we all knew that tortoises didn't need a water bowl because they got their moisture from the food they ate, which is completely wrong. But we knew that back then. And we knew that you don't want to put water down because they're all going to get moldy and die because it's too moist, which is completely wrong. Babies spend most of their time in nice, kind of moist habitats around plant roots and stuff, which we've witnessed ourselves out here on her own. So something that changed a lot from Alaska to down here, outside of the weather, outside of food availability, is my keeping thoughts. So again, primarily I grew up a snake person, and you got an enclosure that is adequate size for them. I used to try to get slightly bigger than what, minimum size. I never wanted to be as minimum, as I always want to give stuff more. And so when I transitioned over to tortoises, the enclosures I was making to me looked like really good size enclosure. A 50-gallon enclosure with a star tortoise or two seemed like something they could live in there for their whole lives. And in my brain, that's honestly what I thought, and I was pretty good with. And I had one or two of the waterline tubs that I was able to get from the guy when I got the Radiant and Galop, but mostly I was using the Rubbermaid stock tanks or whatever. And I thought, man, these are great. Look how much room these guys have. They must be happy. They're great. Coming down here and having put most of them outside when they were large enough to be outside, I realized that everything I was doing was not adequate at all. And while I was doing the best I could given the conditions that I lived in, it definitely was not the best for the animals. Our star tortoises, our Indian star tortoises, biggest one, she's like this big. Their enclosure is, I would say, 40 feet by 20 feet, and it's angled kind of weird. So they have a lot of, they use every square inch of their enclosure. If I were to take the same Rubbermaid that they lived in Alaska and put it out there, I could probably fit 60 of those out there, at least. Same thing with the redfoot tortoises. They seemed happy. I had little Rubbermaid houses that I cut the sides out, and I would put the heating what do you call it? Heating wire, heat wire, that Exoterra.
The cable. Yeah.
Put that underneath of it so they weren't actually in contact, and it would keep them, a little bit warmer at night, but not like too warm. And I mean, these guys are doing great. They love it. Look how much, again, in my head from that, look how much space they have. And then I come down here, and the red feet live right next to us, next to the window here. And that is, I want to say that's probably 20 by 30, 20 by 40 also. And again, they use every square inch of their enclosure. Now they do walk the walls more than anything else. That's something that it's a tortoise.
That's every
thing.
tortoise does.
Yeah.
And like it drives me crazy when people say don't put them in glass because they don't understand glass and they'll try to get through it constantly. They don't. How many humans understand polymers? But we use plastics every day. Just because you don't understand something doesn't mean you don't know that it exists. And tortoises pace no matter
barriers.
What. They walk the lines. They're like less dangerous velociraptors. They test it the whole way around. So they're always going to be pacing the walls. It's just in glass you can see it. Whereas if you have them in a turtle tub or they're outside and against the wall, unless they're really big, you don't see it all the time. So it's more apparent in a glass enclosure, but it's no more or less than if they're in any other enclosure. But again, you can see it. It just saying turtles understand. Well, turtles don't understand the sun, but they need it. So it's such a weird thing for people to say that, like, oh, okay.
Sometimes you just gotta smile and nod.
Yeah. Yeah. Like
it's the whole banging against the glass that they hear that and they're like, oh, you're doing something wrong, and it's taught, and that's what they keep going with. I agree.
And if it wasn't for glass enclosures, our star tortoises probably wouldn't be as crazily acclimated as they are. Star tortoises are typically known for being shy, reclusive tortoises. Because ours grew up with glass front enclosures, they were usually the lower enclosures, and they saw feeding time, our ankles, our knees are food, and then the human brings them food. They were, I think, able to develop a better association more quickly and a lasting association with humans for food, to where, like a lot of tortoises and a lot of box turtles, their fixation on humans overrides their wanting to eat and do other things.
Yeah.
Otis the box turtle is a perfect example of that. Humans there, we have at least 3 box turtles that are the same. Nova, her favorite star tortoise, is the same. You drop food in front of them and they just walk because they're looking at you, and they lift up because they're waiting for the food from the human hand. We have to run away. And she made a nest a couple years ago, and even though when they get to a certain point they should go into a trance, her association with humans is so strong that she would just stop nesting and come over to us. Breeding, if we hear them out there breeding, it's like, oh, let's stay away, because if any of them see us, as awesome as breeding is, they're going to come after the humans. And some of our box turtles are the exact same way. You throw a worm down right in front of it, it's like, go get it. Or you put your turtle mush down, and they're like, cool, stomp over it and come over to the people. And yeah, glass enclosures definitely help making that. I'm not going to call it a bond, but it's a positive association that they have on it. So
Well, I can call it a bond.
so now, one thing that a glass enclosure, of course, is bad about is what I just mentioned: adequate space. When you have baby tortoises, it's great to keep a nice high humidity, warm temperature for them, but it's definitely not a long-term permanent enclosure. Maybe for something like a spider tortoise, if you had like a 50-gallon enclosure, you could probably get away with it because they spend 10 months underground anyway. You might be able to maybe, and even Egyptian tortoises are pretty small. That might be adequate for those guys, but for the most, that is where I see the inadequacy of glass. Limitations on size, because anything really big enough, as I understand,
heavy.
Yes, heavy, and takes up a lot of space.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just one of those things people are like, yeah, okay. Well, they can't see glass. I guarantee you they can see glass. We experimented with our Galapagos here. I took some glass panels that I was using, or I wasn't using, for old snake cage, and food on one side, glass here, tortoise here. Did they crash through the glass? No. They saw the glass and like, okay, it's there. And they went around it to get to their food. So I know from experimenting that they can clearly see glass. Some people don't realize is how good that turtles and tortoises see. There's a paper written, I want to say 2011, 2012, that I read, probably in 2017 is when I read it, 2016. And it completely changed how I was heating and lighting my turtles and tortoises. Growing up in the 90s, red heat lamps are what you use. It's a nice, it's a good red color at nighttime. If it's in your room, you can sleep through it. It's fine. And hey, guess what? Reptiles can't see the red. Guess what? That's completely wrong.
Yeah.
While snakes only have the green, and they don't have the same cones that we have for red, but they have a separate type of cell in their eye that sees red. That's completely different than most other animals have. So snakes, even though they don't have it, they see red just as well. Turtles and tortoises, the experiment was specifically done on the eyes of a red-eared slider, but they can see. They have, you and I and most mammals, we have 3 types of color receptors. They have 7 different types of color receptors. They can see into the ultraviolet, and they can see not far, but they can see into infrared. And there was a 7th color that they weren't really sure what it was, because there's no human equivalent. It kind of reacted to an orange, is what the paper kind of likened it to, but it's a color that we can't even perceive. We have no idea. So along with a paper that was done 2 years ago, where they learned that, hey, there's a lot of subsonic communication going on that we just can't hear. Not only so they're hearing and talking, but they can see stuff that we can't even imagine.
So they're definitely seeing those red lights.
Yes, they're seeing the red lights. It's basically what's a dull glow to us is a spotlight to them. And what I noticed is when after reading them, I'm like, well, let me change these over, and I'll get like the ceramic heat emitters, and then eventually I realized how really intense those were. And that's when I started going to radiated heat panels for most animals. Give them like little nighttime boxes with the heat panels. If I would wake up early in the morning to go to work, or just wake up in the middle of the night, I'd walk down and look down. I'd see turtles and tortoises all night long moving and stuff. Once I had a dark nighttime for them, they settle down. Out here, the only time turtles and tortoises are moving at night is when there's a nesting. That's usually how, let me watch this one because she's probably going to be nesting, because as it gets dark, they have their favorite places to bed down for a week or two. Then they'll use somewhere else, and they'll,
kind of like cats in that regard.
Right. So
just kind of changing it up, and
if they're moving around a lot at night, I'm like, oh, somebody might be digging a nest here. All right, cool. So once I did that and more naturally simulated a real circadian rhythm for them, their behavior changed like within a week. I was like, oh, wow, look at that. But again, for how many years have we been using red lights thinking, oh, they can't see it, and I can keep it in my room and I can sleep through it. It's perfectly fine. And it's definitely not.
Yeah.
It's better than nothing. If you're using a red light, I would say use it just like any other light. Turn it on in the morning, turn it off at night. But at nighttime, they can see it, and it's a spotlight. It's a spotlight for them.
So you guys changed like enclosure size, and obviously you can keep most or more animals outside. Did you change your species focus when you moved?
We kind of expanded because we had more room and we had space to keep stuff. So as far as species, we have a lot of the same species. I mean, in the video that we made, even though we have a lot more tortoises out there, some of the ones that we brought down with us, we still have most of them.
Mhm.
So it really didn't change too much of the species focus.
It was
It's
just the sheer amount.
Yeah, we have more space. So okay, well let's try these guys out, and we'll add these to it. And most stuff has been doing pretty good down here. Can't think of many things that don't do well here that we've tried.
Do you have anything that needs to come indoors in the winter, or do you do
Yes.
heated houses?
Both. So
Okay.
we're in her room right now, her office room, whatever. Like we're not adults. We have our own rooms. We have a bedroom, and then we have our own
We
room.
have a turtle room inside.
Yes, and my room. So some things that have to come in, like some of the box turtles that can't stay out over winter and dig deep enough down, they come in. The Chaco tortoises. Well, we only have one Chaco at the moment, but she goes into one of our heated sheds that we have.
Mhm.
Who else comes in here?
There you go. That's the turtle
Yeah,
room.
yeah.
That's
Yeah, that's
Oh,
what turtles. So when wintertime comes, we have Coahuilan box turtles, and their enclosure, even though they could overwinter here, their enclosure isn't big enough to be thermally stable. They're in medium waterland tubs, and there's a lot of soil side. Those are land tubs outside of the waterline tubs, but there's not enough soil mass to really insulate them well. Unless they're in the very center of that, they might be able to stay out there all winter long, but that's not a chance. That might chance I'm not taking. So until I get a pond dug for them and made for them where they can actually get down below or deep enough to be comfortable all winter long, those guys have to come in. And while a lot of them can be outside most days, they go in once the temperature, depending on species, we have different protocols for different species. Beginning at like 65 degrees is the first group that are a little more sensitive. They come in at night.
which is actually going to happen this weekend.
Right.
So it felt like a really short summer because we're already starting to look at the possibility of bringing them back inside.
Yeah. Our Indian star tortoises, our redfoot tortoises, 65 is our get them inside number. And so the redfoot tortoises, they have a little heated box out here. The Indian stars live in what we call stripy shed because it was intended for Indian stars, Burmese stars, and radiateds. But I've built in there so we can have more stuff than just striped animals. So they go in at nighttime, and then down to 60-ish, our Burmese stars and our radiateds can stay out because Burmese stars are cold tolerant. The radiateds actually are a little more cold tolerant than you would think. You get down to 55. The Galapagos can stay out until it's 50. On the back end of summer, they can stay out until it's 55. And when we go down there in the morning using a temperature gun, their body temperature is still in the upper 70s, low 80s because they're so large that they're able to hold on to that heat just like they do in the wild. In the wild, they live up on the sides of mountains on some of the islands, and the really large males, 55 might be the top temperature, but it's sunny, so they heat up. But at nighttime, it's dropping down pretty cold for them. Now, our smaller Galapagos tortoises, they're more in the 60, 65 range because they're not large enough to hold on to that heat. And we have a pair of babies that go out during the daytime and come back in. They'll probably transition next year to living outside and going into the outside boxes. But those guys actually live in the house and they're enclosure for most of the time, and they go out and get sun and come back in.
Something else that's really interesting about being here is watching how the animals adapt to the weather and the changing temperatures. For the most part, a lot of them are on the smarter side, meaning that, so right now we're in a transition time. I'm starting to see like the Indian stars put themselves away for the evening. Or the little giant enclosure, that's where we keep our little galops. They're starting to go inside by themselves, which is nice because they're about 25-ish.
Cool. Actually, about 30 now.
Okay,
30 pounds.
30-ish pounds. They're getting, I can easily lift 30 pounds because I'm the muscle, right? But their size, it's like handled,
It's 30 pounds, very consolidated. It's like a squirming kettlebell.
Yes, they don't really, they don't want to cooperate sometimes. And in fact, that became an issue last Friday, in fact, when I was dealing with some flash flooding. One of the galops kind of wedged itself in a funny corner, which is its preferred corner. But when the water is rising, I didn't want it to stay there. I was trying to kind of, finagle it around and all that.
There's a bush in that corner. That's why I like the corner, because they eat when the leaves are low enough to eat from it, but they can also get down there and they get to the bottom branches and they just wedge in, and they're very strong. So
very, very strong.
Yeah, kind of difficult moving those guys around and get them to do with you what you want.
So it's nice when they make the smart choice and move themselves.
Good choices.
Yes, please make good choices.
And with our large galops, a lot of times it takes us more than a month to get them into the habit of coming inside at night. And
unless it's windy, because Beagle's a little princess.
Yeah. They don't like wind. So they'll go into their barn. But it's a good month of just, what time is it? All right, it's an hour before dark. Let's go out and get them inside. And so you try to coax them inside with a little bit of hay or mulberry leaves. If you've seen the movie E.T., I call it Reese piecing them into because you use Reese pieces, a little trail of it to get E.T. to come in. Well, you got to do the same thing with these guys. You got to give them a little bit far enough that they keep walking, because if it's too close, they'll walk and plop, and then they'll just drag themselves along to get to the next one. Because they're so frustrating sometimes. So you got to put it long enough to get enough walk, and then sometimes just take it and go a little bit further back until they're inside. It's not as often now because they are better about it, but tapping them on the back of the shell, they hate that. But it's
really,
they really don't like it. The one you mentioned, Beagle, he is emotionally sensitive, is the best way to put it. There are times when he won't come out for 3 days, because I had to drag him and move him around to do something, or he wasn't going in. So I have a walking stick with a rubber pad on the bottom of it on the back of their shell to get them to move along. My best guess is it simulates other tortoises as they're coming out in the morning and moving. They climb on each other and get out of the way. Even though it might simulate something natural, they still hate it.
Now, let's also say it's been a really, really long time since anyone's had to be tapped on the shell.
Yeah. So usually the positive reinforcement versus the negative reinforcement is what's helpful. But yeah, it can be frustrating for at least the first month of cold temperatures, because they also think, I don't care. I think I'll live. I'm fine. I don't care what your weatherman says.
Yeah.
And it's like,
so the tapping is the equivalent of your mom using your full name.
Yes.
Like your middle name.
Yes. That is exactly right.
But then sometimes things are incredibly easy. And as soon as Fitz even sees me, I don't need anything else. All I have to do is just talk to him, and I can get him all the way in.
Moves over.
That's pretty cool.
It's a magical time. It's usually mid-November, usually right around the TTBG, where we'll go down there at about 4:30, and they put themselves away.
And we celebrate.
Yes.
Riverside's got a pretty big Aladabra that thing just does not want to cooperate no matter what they want to do with it. They want to get it outside, it won't go outside. They want to bring it back in, it doesn't want to come in. It just does not cooperate with them at all. So they have a little wheel cart they have to get them on to move them around. And it's big. Like, it's not a little animal. And they're at points they're like, oh, it's just too much work today. You're just staying where you are today. Like, that's just the way it is.
I mean, at first you muscle them and carry them, but once they hit like that 7,500 pound mark, lifting them up, it's really hard. So we have a Rubbermaid black push cart. I just tilt that down, push them in there, and drag it. And they outgrew that. So the only thing is to get them to move, to motivate them somehow to get them to move. And I would imagine if the Aldabra's big enough, it takes a couple people to get them up on that cart.
Oh,
So, you know,
and Emily,
Yeah.
the girl that runs the place, she's tiny. So I'm like, what do you got? Like 6 of you lifting this poor thing up?
Mhm.
It's
I
giant.
need like a
so
pallet jack or something.
oh, it's a big animal. It is a
Yeah.
big animal, and just to hear her complain about, it's like a nightmare. And then they have a sulcata that they absolutely love because it does everything they want it to do. It will walk outside for them. It will walk inside. And this one just like, hey, I am not going anywhere today.
And just like people that have giant breeds of dogs, we used to keep Great Danes. Like that's the only type of dog I've had since I was a kid is Great Danes. And they're large and they're kind of dumb, but they're kind of smart at the same time. They know how big they are and they listen when they want to. The Galapagos tortoises are the same way. They understand how large they are. They know they can do what they want. And it is very frustrating.
Now, you did say that you were a snake guy. You moved from Alaska. You became a turtle guy before you left there. Do you do any other reptiles other than tortoises and turtles?
Yes. Right now, I have two red-tailed boas. One is a Peruvian red-tailed boa. The other is a Suriname red-tailed boa. She has two Leachianus geckos.
Yeah, one of them I
leeches.
actually got at one of the TTPG
Auctions.
auctions.
Yeah, at
And
auctions.
then the other one I just got at the next reptile show. One's a Pine Island, one's an Anu.
Yeah, Ananui times Pine Island
Yeah.
or something. Yeah.
They're awesome. I love that they're like so easy to care for. It's essentially baby food, just fruit flavored baby food. That's what it looks like. And they don't have to be, fed every single day. I feed them every other day. It's very, very low maintenance.
Something that I was keeping that I'm down to one now through just natural attrition is leaf-tailed geckos, Europlatus genus. I was keeping 6 different species and had them breed for me. 2 species had them breed pretty well for me. But it's just like the trying to always have something live on hand for them, which is primarily crickets or whatever. It's kind of a pain in the butt. And so luckily they don't have very long life, or according to the books I have, they don't have long lifespans. So as they would die, instead of buying new ones, most of them are about 2 or 3 year animals, except for the slightly larger ones. They live a little bit longer. And so instead of like, oh, well, this one died, let me replace it with a new female, new male. I was like, nope, as they die, those cages are just plant cages now. Nothing else is going in them. And she just died recently, a mossy leaf-tailed gecko that I bought back in 2019.
Wow.
And they live for 2 to 3 years, according to the books I have. So I'm like, man, this thing is pretty overdue. Yeah, all I have left right now is one giant leaf-tailed gecko. And I think I've had that one since 2020. So she'll be around for a couple more years. And I don't like getting rid of stuff. There are a lot. It's a thing where people buy stuff, keep it for a year, and see the value in trading it for something that they want that year. Flipping like a real estate agent, but with reptiles, flipping them. I don't like doing that. And so even though I'm really not into snakes that much, I bought the red tails because I'd always liked red tail boas, and it was like, oh, I'll start over and see how long I can get one of these guys to live compared to my old boa. It's like, oh, now they're just the boas in the other room. I'm really not doing much with them other than keeping them clean, feeding them, and keeping them alive. Same with those guys, but I refuse to just sell them off or get rid of them, because I bought them. It's my responsibility. I'm going to keep them until I need,
Yeah, and you never know how someone else is going to take care of them. That's
Yeah.
why we're going to have the ball python we have forever, even though I'm not doing anything with it. Like, I don't want him to end up in a drawer somewhere. Like,
That's the biggest thing.
or end up somebody letting them go where they don't belong.
yeah,
Either because they can harm the environment where they're at, bring something to the environment, or it's just not suited well enough for them, and it's a Russian tortoise in the wilds of Alaska where it doesn't belong.
yeah.
So people are like, well, it's warm enough here, they can live. No. There's so many other factors that goes into things like that.
So we're coming up on an hour and 15. I want to be respectful of you guys' time. Is there anything that we haven't hit yet that you wanted to talk about? Or Mark, did you have any questions we haven't gotten to?
I would like to apologize for not making the meeting right away, but
It
I did listen
happens.
the whole time. So I was listening on the drive. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna at least know what's going on. So I do apologize for that. And you guys were excellent guests. I absolutely really enjoyed this. What an experience just to hear about and how you did everything. It's just so cool, and I really appreciate you sharing that with us.
And I hope you'll come back, because I feel like we have so much more we could talk about. Like, it's been great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%. We didn't even talk about any specific species. We just talked about your travel. So we'd love to have you guys on again and just talk about some key categories that you're working with.
Yeah, our Burmese stars seem to be one of the more prolific. A couple of years ago, we had so many. We brought them to the auction, and I auctioned some of them off. And whatever didn't get auctioned off, or sold, like Andrew from Arizona Tourist Compound was selling some. Whatever didn't, they ended up in the program. What do you call it? The CPP.
I think someone on this call might have one. From
Yeah, I believe she does. In fact, it's on her shirt. I can see it on her shirt.
I told my husband he's going to grab Mantis real quick. She's probably asleep.
Cool.
Something that, while I try to be respectful of people who is their business, reptiles aren't my business. It's funny. Like I spent more than 2 decades in the military and retired. So I have another job now, but I'm in my brain, I'm still retired from my real job. And so animals was my retirement plan, getting time and having money to spend on my animals. I'm not deploying. I don't have to go anywhere. Whereas other people, like, they're working with their animals and their retirement plan is no more animals. So, but I don't like selling things. And I don't like you said, I don't know where they're going to go or how they're going to end up. So, so normally when I reproduce stuff, I'm not much of a, like, you're not going to see me on Fauna. You're not going to see me on Morph Market. I usually work with,
look at her. She looks great.
Got some great growth to her.
Wow. She looks so good.
She's finally over 200 grams.
Nice. That's awesome.
Thanks to you guys. She wasn't gaining well for a while, and I reached out to you. You gave me some advice, and within a month, or started going up and up and up, and she's just been going up since. So
good.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So like I don't want to give my stuff away, because that would not be that'd be kind of a bad move for my friends that sell everything. So I just usually work through one person, and he's the conduit to the public for anything that I produce, that I don't end up giving away or auctioning off for charity at the events. But yeah, I can't just be like, oh, have a turtle, no, because other people that's how they live. That's how they pay their bills. So
and you don't,
my friends, but I don't want to think about where they might be going.
It's amazing to be able to give them away, but also then you have to worry about, is this person going to take this animal for life and take good care of them, or are they going to flip them in a couple of months? So, like, I get that.
Are they going to listen to the advice that I give them, or are they going to keep it, like you said, in a shoebox somewhere? Is going to end up on a kitchen floor for 50 years? It's like you see those stories, and while in the YouTubeverse, they're kind of rare, because YouTubeverse, look what I have, this is the most amazing thing, isn't this great? Very, very little YouTubeverse focuses on the negative stuff. So that's something I really appreciate with Garden State Tortoise, like showing what people do, what happens with like animals. And unfortunately, I think there is a lot more of that out there. They're just not sharing that on YouTube. So it's cool to see that somebody is sharing that kind of stuff. I even did a video on, I have a lot of cool stuff, a lot of good stuff that lives, but I made a lot of mistakes to become a good reptile keeper. Like, I've been keeping reptiles for 40 years. I've been really good at it for about 15. The stuff I did when I was
still learning.
Yeah, the stuff I did when I was younger, I would go back and choke me right now. Like, what would you do? But it's a learning curve. It's whatever. And so yeah, like
we're still making changes to this day to various like tortoise diets, just to see if anything makes a difference. I have an actual like food diary, I guess, that isn't for me, but it's for the Galapagos tortoises, so that we can like actually watch what happens when they get certain foods.
I think about it, and like when it comes to where the tortoises end up, if me as a 19-year-old got one of my tortoises right now, I would be very unhappy. So
I think we're all kind of that way. You start out
yep,
not only not knowing what you're doing, but the advice at the time is not good.
Yeah.
And
I will tell you, I'm working with Russian tortoises because I owe that animal I had as a kid some respect. So I'm like, yeah, I need to do something better because I definitely did not do good when I first started with these things. So
Yeah, my first turtle was a Midland painted turtle. That's what was wild where I lived. Didn't have a lot of money, so if I wanted a pet, I had to go catch it. And I want to do that today because there's plenty of captive bred stuff out there. So that's one strike against younger me. Two, what's a heat lamp? I didn't know what a heat lamp was. There was like 2 books in the library on turtles and how to keep them, and they were really bad. They weren't very useful. So yeah, as new information comes out there and people find better strategies, something like I mentioned way earlier in the beginning of this is to know that, you know what, I might have been wrong about stuff. I might have told people some wrong stuff, and to own that and now fix it for your animals that are outside or inside.
yeah, when you know better, you do better, right? And there's never a point where you're like, I'm the master at this. You're always learning. There's always someone that can teach you something. I feel like it's kind of a lifelong process with them for sure.
And being out there with them, she gets to spend more daytime because I have a day job, so she gets to spend more daytime with them. So she's able to see a lot more of their habits, a lot more of the behaviors that I've never heard anybody talk about before. So it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then we see patterns. Recently, actually, it's been a year now. We've had a pair of female radiateds that a fellow TTBG member sent to us on breeding loan. They said he brought them out here on breeding loan, and we can pretty much pinpoint the day they're gonna dig a nest based off of their behaviors and the behaviors of their enclosure mates by what they're doing. It's not just pacing, because they pace a lot. There's a very specific kind of pacing. There's interactions that occur that are just weird amongst the males and females. And it's like, okay, so if he's doing that, then it means there's probably eggs coming soon. So yeah, there's still so much to be learned. And the only way to learn is to sit out there with them and observe
and
them.
write about it.
Yeah,
that's the biggest thing. I'm a huge supporter of this one app it's called Finch. It's like a little cute little virtual pet self-care app. Anyway, I primarily use it to track turtle stuff, because one of the things I've sort of mentioned before is just anxiety in general, right? Well, one of the things here is getting everyone in. Sometimes at night and stuff, I would wake up and be like, oh my God, did I forget to get somebody in? Well, I have kind of a reminder on this app that helps me click it off and boom, everybody's good for the night. And I don't have to worry.
What's even cooler about her app, and I say, hey babe, check. She records a lot of stuff, seasonal things, when birds show up that for the time of year, when they're acting kind of odd. Were they doing the same thing last year? I don't know. We'll check. Hey, guess what? They were doing the same thing last year. Not a big deal. Or, hey, this is a new behavior we've never seen before. What's going on here? Let's watch it for a few days and see it. So her journaling is definitely a lot more useful than just helping her have an outlet for anxiety and stress. She's actually documenting a lot of really useful things. And
so when's your book coming out?
Seriously, write an article at least.
Yeah. You should. Behavioral observations, that's amazing. All the stuff you're keeping about their food.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done videos and put post growth. I have over 10 years of growth charts on certain individual animals and across species, because a question that I want to know, I would see people ask all the time is, how my tortoises 3 months old, how big should it be? Or how much weight should it be gaining? And I would see really not great answers. It should be gaining 3 grams. Should it? Is that normal? Is 3 grams low? Is it different from species to species? And so what I developed in my charts was comparing the turtle to itself the previous month. So if I say it should gain 3 grams, okay, that's kind of cool. But what if the tortoise itself is a 500 gram a kilo? 3 grams means nothing.
Yeah.
So 3 grams would be weird if it only gained 3 grams. But if you have a 25-gram baby tortoise,
That's
3
huge.
grams,
Yeah.
that's 10%. If it loses 10% of its body weight, there's something
wrong.
up there. So what I do is I just, just a quick little math equation. What percentage growth has this tortoise had over the last month? And do the different species have the same type of growth? And so I can look at my charts and see like, hey, Indian stars month to month, they should be growing about 3 to 4% larger than they started the month out. Burmese stars grow a little bit faster. Galops grow way faster. So what they're putting on, but with charting stuff, I've made posts about it. I use the same board I've had for the last. I've had that one thing for 10 years now, and it's just this little thing from a sewing shop with a grid on it, and you put the turtle on top, and you take a picture. Put the tortoise on top, take a picture. Put the next tortoise.
He says it like it's so easy.
Yeah, sometimes they don't want to cooperate a lot, but you can look at their growth. And one of the reasons I was doing that is, how do their patterns work? Where do the lines come in? Do the lines just appear over time? Because a lot of snakes, they go through an ontogenetic color change where they start out one color, and then as they turn into adults, they turn a different color. Not so much as the case with a lot of tortoises. Their color comes in at the edges, and from looking at my pictures, I can see lines forming little, annuli at a time, and see how their lines grow. And that's one of the things I was trying to find out, like how fast should they grow. So when somebody asks the question, I can answer it with, instead of just probably about this much. No, hey, I've seen over time that this species grows this much, and this is what their shells would look like as they grow. And calling them annuli, of course, is wrong because, with the exception of some species that live in very resource restricted areas, most baby tortoises putting on 3 of those annuli in their first 2 months. So the growth rings is another word. Annuli, growth rings is, I guess, is a more obvious word for it. But and you see people, oh, that box turtle is obviously 4 years old because it has 4 rings. No, that box turtle, there's no 4 years old there. But again, that's something that we learned when we were younger, and we knew as a fact the best way to age a turtle tortoise is count the rings. And I have pictures, over time to, if anybody ever argued that or that became popular again, images right here, not so much.
I'm really hearing a Batager article here in this growth information. This would be fantastic.
Yeah,
Please consider it. Michael wants you to
I tried to get her to do an entire thing and maybe pitch it to the TTPG. She's because I have, a lot of people, they have spouses that are less than supportive, or they're just like, oh, that's your thing. That's your thing.
Yeah.
Whereas if I did not have her around, I would not be able to do any of what I do because she does all the daytime caretaking. It used to be 100% me. Like all the reptile stuff was me. She had her cat, and then
and a dog.
And then something changed. Okay.
Yeah. So the whole reason that I got into tortoise keeping was as a means to deal with some grief. I don't really want to get too sad here, but my cat, my Bengal cat, he was 12. He died very unexpectedly over like the course of 3 days, and it completely shattered me. And I am someone who I put myself into work when I'm going through things. And back then it took, I don't know, just an hour and a half, 2 hours to kind of get everybody soaked, get everybody fed, get everybody sorted for the day. Now that process has sort of ballooned into like 10 hours of my day. And now I do it for completely different reasons, but it was so helpful to help me just get through the grief, really.
Have something to focus on. And I realized that pretty early on because I would come home, and usually I'd come home, take my uniform off, put people clothes on, and start doing turtle things. I'd come home and turtle things were done. I'm like, why'd you do turtle things? Like, that's what I do. And then, okay, well, wait till I get home and I'll do this while you do that, break it up or whatever. And so it's become where she, I would say, is probably the primary zookeeper, for lack of better words. If something has to be built, I'm building it. If the electricity has to be put somewhere, I'm doing that. If it comes to we got to formulate food, I'll start off and let her experiment with it, and she'll dial this back, add some of this or whatever. But but for the most part, she may not know probably less than a quarter of the scientific names of the animals that she takes care of. But she could probably like if there was a competition, a very, very long-term competition, because it's tortoises and turtles, of caretaking with some of the smarter people out there that can list every single turtle name. I guarantee she'd do a much better job than a lot of people, because she does day in and day out. And from a person who liked furry, fuzzy mammals to come into a relationship and an eventual marriage with somebody that had a room full of rattlesnakes and cobras, and now a yard full of turtles and tortoises, and become the primary keeper, it's a story in and of itself. And again, a lot of spouses are accepting of your hobby. I have friends whose spouses have been, maybe not purposely, but they've killed their animals. They've done stuff that's been very not helpful for their animals. So to have somebody that she's not really, I don't call her supportive of me, because it's kind of like our thing at this point.
Yeah, it's not our thing.
But yes, it is great to have somebody that, I want to say, I mean, she's new compared to some people, but it's something newer in the grand scheme of her lifespan. Turtle,
right? Not necessarily new. I mean, you're spending that many hours with them and watching behavior and doing diet, like that itself is more than a lot of people have.
I'll never forget when we first got down here and we met Bob Bloom. This was back when everyone had Fitbits before Apple Watches. He was saying how it was so easy to get the 10,000 steps that he needed, just on his ranch. Well, yes, it is. It is very, very easy to do that. And we don't even have like nearly the same amount of property.
He has like 15 acres of tortoises on his 30 acres of property.
But just on our little acre here, yes, I routinely hit 10,000 steps.
Yeah. Oh, dang, I forgot. Let me go here. Oh, did I fill that water? Oh, you crapped in it already?
Yeah.
And so there's so much walking back and forth. And that's what she does. And then Saturdays and Sundays, I try to wake up early. It doesn't always happen, but I try to wake up early. And I try to do most of the turtle things, because I do appreciate what she does. I send her away.
It's a lot of work. Yeah. It's a lot of work.
Yeah. A few August ago, I sent her to London to go to London for a few days, because a friend of ours was coming back from somewhere else in Europe, and they could spend a day over there hanging out.
I try to get out once a year, at least for like a day and a half.
A month ago, I sent her to Vegas to go see the Backstreet Boys at the Sphere,
which was awesome.
That way she can go and because of her worries about she's like so embedded in the world out back that it really it messes with her sleep sometime and whatnot. It's like, I know how to, obviously they're my animals. I know how to do stuff. Well, did you do this? Like, yes, I did this.
It's sort of like, it's akin to having children, except we don't have children, but they're the closest things to children that will ever.
It totally is.
So yeah, it is great to have a spouse that's working with you, or that's supportive and embedded now in the hobby. So, but yeah, how it all happened is just kind of interesting in and of itself.
And it's not even just me; it's also my stepmother. She makes gourd art, and she's actually going to send me a couple of turtles like this for the TTPG auction this year. Which is
very cool.
Exciting. But yeah, she gets very, very excited to make these, and I think they're super, cute. And anytime we have people over, they always check out this little guy.
Yeah, that's so cool. Well, I think that's a good note to wrap up on. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight, and truly, I hope you'll come back, because I feel like we could just talk till midnight. And
yeah,
I'll be on time next time. Promise.
And if you guys want to hang out for just a minute, and we'll go off. And thank you, everyone who joined us in the chat.
Of course, we're both going to be at the conference. In fact, I registered the other night. I booked our room, so we're definitely going to be there. Time off work is good to go. So anybody that wants to ask questions that I didn't get to, or you think of 3 days from now, we'll be around. We'll definitely be there. So anybody that wants to talk until midnight, she passes out about 8 o'clock. So you're going to have just me for the next 4 hours, but at least till 8 o'clock, You can ask her any questions, and me, I'll stay up until whenever.
Well, when you wake up at 5.
Yeah, rancher hours. We got rancher
Yeah.
hours.
Something's got to give. Yeah. All right. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
All right. Appreciate being invited. Thank you very much.